How is this process different from learning choreography in a typical Zoom dance class or in a studio?
With Shayla and Jenna's session, we did pretty much entirely improv, and that provided a very strong contrast to the usual ballet classes. We did several exercises, one where we pretty much improv to no music at all, and had the opportunity to dance around our bedrooms, essentially with no sound playing in the background. And so it was definitely a very different experience from anything I've ever done in a Zoom back class, or also in the real world, when we were back in the studio. It's definitely very different from any kind of improv I've done in the studio as well. So I thought it was a very enlightening almost experience to figure out how to best use kind of the tiny space that I had in my bedroom, instead of having a full expansive studio, and just being mindful of a little a Zoom box that we're sitting in.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Great.
So can you talk a little more about the choreographer's process of generating material?
So we combined a little bit of spoken word almost, and just creating sound. Permanence, sand, rains, time, waves of breath, impact, resistance, gravel, texture, glisten, shadow, flow, friction, departure, light, suspension. Another one of the exercises we did was taking those words and having someone kind of speak those words aloud, and having the other 2 or 3 dancers improv to those words. Another cool exercise that we did was draping material over our camera. So you might see this in the footage, but there are a lot of scenes where all of us have different things kind of draped over the camera to almost play with the idea of obstruction. There was one really kind of serendipitous, unexpected moment where we were supposed to be improvising to sound that was prepared, like music or some kind of soundtrack that was prepared. But because one of the choreographers had her headphones in, it was only playing through her own headphones and not through the Zoom. And so by the luck of Zoom technicality, we just improv to silence for 10 minutes, and we thought we were supposed to be hearing music, but we didn't hear anything, so we had to kind of create our own noise and own beat. And she was like, "Oh, that was so great, what did you think of the music?" And we were like, "What music?" We didn't hear anything.
That's so cool. Could you share one highlight from your experience, or a moment you found particularly interesting or challenging?
Basically, how this one came about was we had done a different improv exercise earlier, and we were supposed to write in the chat basically one word responses, or how we felt in the moment, and just rapid fire write 10 words just as they came to mind. And so each of us had written probably 10 or 20 words, and somebody was in charge of reading all of those off in almost poetic way. And everyone else was supposed to embody those words as they were happening. So we said enough times that I kind of remembered the order of, it was it would go from spinning to torque to celestial or something like that. But I didn't necessarily have it down completely. And so I found myself trying to do a pirouette when I knew spinning was coming up, but being unsure of when it would appear, and kind of having that uncertainty, whereas ballet is just so deeply rooted with kind of music, and rooted with counts, and rooted with a lot of structure in general. Kind of having this total lack of structure, and combining that with words as well, was very interesting, and I think challenging, and a new experience I would not have had otherwise. But kind of accomplishing that in a tiny bedroom at college was definitely a new experience, and you don't have all the studio space you usually do, so any large movements were totally off the table. So experimenting with levels more than I usually did was it was a very fun and new, exciting experience.
But did you enjoy kind of being so process oriented and having the freedom to experiment and explore instead of being stressed for a show or learning choreography really quickly?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was entirely improv. And so there truly was no pressure to remember movement or kind of perfect anything, really. The whole kind of, I think, theme of what we were working on was more the idea that, like, there is no, like, truth, and there is no, like, truth in the face of, like, moving bodies and time, and everything is always very fluid.